All right, our next topic is the octet rule, which if you Google, it's always called the octet rule. I don't like that it's called the octet rule. I would call it more the octet guideline. I don't like calling it rule because it's broken a lot. What the octet rule tells us is that atoms can't have more than 8 valence electrons, right? And so for some atoms, that's true. You will never find a scenario in which it has more than 8 valence electrons. And the atoms for which that's true is carbon, nitrogen, oxygen, and fluorine. Neon doesn't form any bonds, so we don't really have to worry about it. But if you want to include it on the list, you can. So this octet rule is only true for them. If you're thinking, oh, well, then why is it a rule? Well, these 4 elements, carbon, nitrogen, oxygen, and fluorine, are some of the more common elements. So even though the rule is only true for them, they're so much more commonly found that it is actually the rule most of the time. Everything below it, so period 3 and below, remember that each period is 1 row. So period 3 is with all this stuff. And remember, since we're talking about covalent bonding, we're only talking about the nonmetals. Everything down here can have more than 8 valence electrons if it helps minimize formal charge. So there'll be plenty of cases where you have these elements here and they obey the octet rule. But if there's a way to lower the formal charge, and if you have to disobey the octet rule, you totally can. My general rule of thumb is that in chemistry, there are no rules. We learn what works most of the time, and those are our quote-unquote rules. But the world's a complicated place, and so any kind of rule you find, you'll always find exceptions. So one of the best ways to learn is learn what the rule is, because that'll encompass most encounters that you're going to have, and that gets you 70-80% of the knowledge without too much work. And then once you know the rules, then you learn the exceptions. And that's not just true in chemistry, that's true in most subjects.